Welcome back, everyone. Oz here, and today we've got some entitled people for you all. These are just some stories about people being just generally entitled monsters. I'm very excited to share them all with you. Hope you all enjoy. Gusto belle. I honestly don't know if that's correct or not. Make fun of me in the comments for it, please. You guys already do. Car shop keeps blocking my driveway. I live in a small town and my family lives in a house that is right in town, but at the end of a long laneway. My mom lives in the property too, in a house right next to us that is also at the end of this long laneway. The property next to our laneway has been turned into a legit car repair shop. We have always had a pretty good relationship with the owner, or so I thought. Now, to park on the west side of his building, they have to drive across the top of our lane from the road, which has been fine. But over the past few months, some of his clients have started parking their vehicles in our laneway, blocking or obscuring the entrance to our property. I've messaged the owner of the car place about it, and he moved the vehicles, but it happens at least once or twice a week, and not too long ago, a truck was left there for a whole weekend. The other day, someone parked a motorhome in our lane, and I could hardly get in. I was fed up, so I called the owner and told him that he was blocking access to our property, and that I would start having cars towed if it kept happening. My mom is in poor health, and I've had to call an ambulance several times recently, but they would not have been able to get around this motorhome. The man told me that I don't own my laneway, and his customers could park there if they wanted to. He said the township owns it. Now, the township does have a right of way to access a creek and culvert, but we pay taxes on and maintain that land. I wound up telling him that it wasn't his parking lot and hanging up on him in a blind rage. My husband spoke to him and convinced him that we do in fact own our land. I am considering putting up a fence or blocking his customers from using my lane to park, which would effectively render a large section of his lot useless to him if this continues. All because he thought it was cool to block my driveway and then had the audacity to tell me that he would keep doing it. Honestly, your best bet is to probably put up signs that mark the area as being a towaway zone and private property. That'll help prevent that, and you'll have to stick by your word, and yeah. You could also get an officer, but I'm unsure how well that would work. It really depends on your town's or county civil codes. I know that for mine, blocking a residential driveway can be subject to towing, ticketing, fines, and just general other inconveniences for the owner of the vehicle. So it's definitely something that would require a little bit of research to see what your local codes are. But yeah, when one client gets towed and they're on the hook for it, I'm pretty sure it won't happen again. Not a real name 42. Sales rep tries to make me work on my vacation. So this happened about 8 years ago, but the memory just resurfaced and thought it was too good not to share. At the time, I was working for a large company that did all manner of stuff, such as selling cleaning chemicals, pest elimination services, leasing machinery, stuff like that. After starting in the customer service team, boy are there some stories I can share from that time. I made it to the team that handles machine leases and logistics, dealing only with our field sales and service reps. A lot of our field reps could be entitled jerks at times. There was a bit of a company culture of praising them as heroes who went out and got us customers, but there was one in particular who we always dreaded dealing with. He would incorrectly fill out leases and then call and scream at us whenever we rejected them, would demand anything he submitted be put to the front of our work queues, scream at us if we didn't get things done on his timeline, and just the worst entitled behavior. But since the vice president over our area was a former field rep, he would just ignore our complaints instead of addressing them or passing them on to the people in charge of the field reps. One year, thanks to a friend, I lucked out and got a pass to San Diego Comic-Con. The day my vacation started, I was sitting in the airport waiting for my flight when my cell phone rings. I answer it and it was the entitled rep, ER. I was confused because the phone was my personal phone, not a work one, and I had no idea how he got the number. I barely said hello before he started in on me. ER, I just saw that you rejected a lease I submitted. Fix that now and process it. I promised the customer we would expedite the machine, and if we don't, I will lose this business. Me. Oh no, dude, I am not in the office. I'm on vacation, and this is my personal number. You need to call our office line and someone there can help you. ER. I don't have the time for that bullshit, and I don't care if you're on vacation. This is your problem, and you'll fix it now or I'll report you to the AVP for not doing your damn job. Me. I am literally sitting in an airport boarding a flight in 20 minutes. I am not going to the office. I am on vacation. You will not call this number again. You messing up a lease is not my problem. Goodbye. I then hung up, and of course he called right back. Rolling my eyes, I ignored the call and blocked his number. A week later, I'm back in the office, and as I'm logging in for the day, my supervisor walks up with a grin on her face. Apparently, ER had called into the office after I blocked him and demanded to speak to my manager. He tried to spin her some BS to make me look bad, but my supervisor knew me well enough to know he was full of it. With a few questions, she basically got him to admit on a recorded call that he had dug into employee files to find my personal number and call me on it, demanding that I do unpaid work to fix his mistake. Apparently, even with the AVP going to bat for the field reps, he couldn't actually defend this when it was brought to HR and the higher-ups. ER wasn't fired, but he had to give me a written apology. That's bullshit. For his behavior, and I'm told he was severely chewed out by his supervisors and written up, putting him in danger of losing his job if he did anything like that again. Every time he called our department after that, he was always very polite and respectful to us, and I became a bit of a hero for finally getting that guy off our backs. Yeah, he pretty much just saw that entire department as being pushovers, that he kind of just do whatever the hell he wanted to, and they had to abide by him, feeling like he was probably invincible for being in the standing that he was in. The fact that he dug through personal files is actually really gross, and he should have been fired for that, not written up. Like, that should have been termination. Like, think about, like, to just put this in further perspective, an employee dug through personal files to get personal records in order to contact them outside of work hours. In any other circumstance that wasn't for work, that could be really dangerous and really suspicious. Let alone the fact that, I mean, it's already just gross. Reading okay, 1831. I know it says these deposits are non-refundable. Now, I've been tattooing professionally for close to 2 years, and this is my first time dealing with this particular situation. While I fully understand why individuals are reluctant to have a newer artist working on them, I have also seen experienced artists mess up and/or screw people over. I had a young man and his father come into the shop recently. This was my second time speaking with them. The adult-aged son wanted a relatively easy piece on his forearm, consisting of only lettering, a little line work, and some generic cloud shading. They did not ask for a specific artist, and they put a deposit down with me for an appointment initially set for today. The young man's mother contacted me yesterday, explained that they had an event coming up and she did not want tattoo plastic wrap present in any of the event photos, and wished to reschedule. Weird excuse, but not a problem. I attempted to reschedule him twice before speaking with the mother again today. The mother began with, "It says right on the appointment card that these deposits are non-refundable, but I just thought I'd ask." She then went on to state that individuals online said, "Go in and ask for the owner," so her husband and son were supposed to ask for the owner, but whoever just threw you up there. The owner was not even there either time that they came in, and the owner was not mentioned. She kept stating that she was aware I was new and wanted someone more experienced like the owner, doing her adult-aged son's first piece, since it was bigger. Again, it was a simple piece. At one point, she even asked, "Are you still an apprentice or what?" When I informed her that I had been taking on my own clients for well over a year now, she only said, "Yeah, see, I'd like someone with more experience to do it." I offered to transfer the deposit over to a more experienced artist, the exact one she was asking for, and she stated that she'd just like the deposit back. She stated a second time that she was aware the deposit was non-refundable, but that she'd just thought she'd ask. I told her at this point that the owner retains half of the deposit, so I'd have to discuss the potential return with him. And she asked in a rather rude tone, "Okay, should I expect to hear back from you tonight then, or should I be contacting him myself?" Too long, didn't read. This woman canceled her adult son's tattoo appointment, insulted my experience and ability to do a fairly simple piece, and expects to receive the non-refundable deposit back. Honestly, the telling part is that she looked online for a way to possibly either reschedule or even try to get the non-refundable deposit back. It's part of it. It's a non-refundable deposit. Also, just the general attitude that I'm seeing here is just really shitty. Not to mention, the child is an adult. He should be making the appointment himself, so he doesn't have to worry about his mother just pulling this kind of shit on his behalf, essentially. That's probably gotta suck. Dude was excited for his first tattoo, and now his mom pretty much threw it away for him. That's cool. Anayushi, woman at hospital refuses to check in. This just happened. I'm still sitting in the lobby in awe of the event, and I wanted to write it down while it's still fresh in my mind. I'm waiting for a ride home, so I got to witness the majority. For blood work at this particular medical center, there's a digital kiosk to sign in rather than speaking to a desk. The kiosk is very simple. Put your ID and insurance card in the machine, it'll scan, check you have a blood work request, then confirm it to the room in the back. While I was waiting, an older woman comes up to the front and entirely passes the kiosk and attempts to open the door into the lab. The door, not locked, is open, and the nurses quickly rush to stop her, leading to an argument in the lobby with around 3 nurses blocking the door. Nurse 1, ma'am, you need to check in and wait to be called. Woman, I'm not doing that shit. You can't pay me to touch a damned computer. I don't even have an ID. You can look up my information in the back. Nurse 2, it doesn't work like that here. The kiosk is very simple. You can manually put in the information if you don't have an ID. Woman, I'm not doing that. This is unnecessary. The office in the other town over doesn't have one. It's hard enough to put a card in the grocery store machine. Now you're making me do it here? Nurse 2, well, we're not that other location. I'm sorry, but you need to check in. I can help you if you need. Woman, this is ridiculous. Just look up my information. I'm an old woman. I won't touch a computer. I don't touch a computer anywhere. You can't force me. Nurse 2, ma'am, we're not forcing you. It's just how our system works. I can do it for you if you have your information. Woman, fine, do it then. From there, she proceeds to announce her personal information very loudly. Nurse inputs it. Nurse 2, do you have an insurance card? Woman, obviously, I don't have it on me. You can look it up. Nurse 2, unfortunately, I can't. Our system doesn't work that way. Do you know your insurance ID? Woman, yeah, it's number. Woman 2, there, you're checked in. No problems. Woman, finally, I don't understand why the new generation is making everything so difficult. You can't expect me to use a computer. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone I know or any of these people behind me. For a 1 to 10, I'd give it a 0. Nurse 2, understand, ma'am. You're signed in though. You can take a seat now. Woman, I can't go back. I just went through all that trouble to sign in. I'm an old woman. This is already stressful. Nurse 1, there's someone in the back already. You'll be called in soon. Woman, I'll make sure to never come to this location again. Hurry it up then. The nurses went into the back and she took a seat somewhat close to me and began talking to the people in the lobby. Only the other person engaged with her, and she started talking about pancakes like she didn't just cause a spectacle just now. Is this what secondhand embarrassment is? When she was called, she left her pile of belongings on the chair and went into the back. Edit, I didn't expect this would get so much attention. I'm fascinated by everyone's stories about technology and other people giving their insight. Thank you for sharing. I didn't think this would become a post about technology though. The response to technology wasn't the problem for me that made her entitled. It was her deliberate attempt to enter the blood work lab, then verbally snapping at the nurses that were trying to help her even after being offered for someone to check her in for her. There was a button next to the kiosk that she could tap and it would call for help. She didn't do that. She ignored it altogether, then got angry at the nurses when she didn't get her way, rather than asking for help at all. That's what this was meant to be about, not older people and technology. That being said, the comments are sharing some very amazing stories and information, and I recommend reading them. Honestly, I did check the comments and I didn't really find too much of interest beyond just people talking about similar experiences and those who have taught the elderly in their life how to actually use a computer to avoid situations like this. But honestly, sometimes I do wonder if people just prefer actually having someone to yell at rather than having some kind of like self-check-in or self-checkout or system along those lines. I don't know. Sometimes I do wonder if they just enjoy having an actual person to yell at or do it for them. Personally, I like doing it myself because it's faster and I don't have the anxiety of just watching someone fill in information slowly. I know that I can do it pretty quickly, or at least I don't have the anxiety of watching someone do something else. Snoo Bunnies 7461, entitled Man at the Grocery Store. I popped over to the grocery store to pick up some things for a small party tonight. This store has an option where you can scan your store card and get a scanner. You scan and bag everything as you shop, and at the end of your trip, you scan the barcode into the checkout, pay, and leave. When I got into the store, there was a guy in front of the stand where you get the scanners. He was searching for his card, found it, and then decided this was the correct time to make a call on his cell phone. I waited for a minute or two, and then said, in a not big deal voice, figuring he didn't see me waiting, "Excuse me, but could you finish so I can get to a scanner?" "Oh my god, no! I'm not finished yet! You need to wait!" He goes back to talking on his phone. At this point, there's no use in poking the crazy, so I did my shopping, self-checkout, scanned everything, paid, bagged, and started to leave the store. I kid you not, when I tell you this guy was still talking on the phone, standing in front of the scanner as I left, 15 to 20 minutes of him being a rude, entitled jerk. Honestly, that sounds like a super cool way to shop, but damn, that requires a lot of trust in your customers, and I would be really nervous about implementing a system like this. And I mean, this is one of the reasons why. Not even just the possibility of dealing with someone stealing or not properly scanning things. I mean, receipt checkers would definitely be needed, but some asshole who just clogs the line and prevents people from using a built-in service that your company offers or store offers that benefits the customers. That's just shitty behavior right there, honestly. Part of me thinks that I would just keep bugging him until he actually moves, or just being really awkward and watching him and making sure that I'm just in view as peripheral vision so that way he sees me and realizes the awkwardness of it. But truth being, I probably would have done exactly what OP did and awkwardly just walked out of it and did my shopping like a regular person and not utilize a super cool feature the store has put in place for their members. This one's posted by I Did a Bad Thing. Evil Karen tried to dictate her son's life long after he moved out. Hello. I kinda wish I had my own Karen story to post here, but apart from farting into a vent to get back at a bad housemate, I don't have anything else interesting of my own to share. But I do have one story from a former friend of mine. We aren't friends anymore since he just got more toxic with time, and it likely stems from his mother, who was a real Princess Peach in her own right. Her husband died when her son was a teenager, and she quickly remarried. My former friend, FF for short, did not like his new stepfather, and it was a mutual hate as the man had his own kids he moved into the house. Former friend turned 18, moved out and into an apartment above his grandparents' garage, and we met when we were both 20. We were co-workers that hit it off well. I was new to the area at the time, and he helped me figure the city out. For 5 years, he and I were like brothers. We knew everything about each other, but then he started getting demanding. And one day, he punched me for suggesting he get a mental health check. He refused to apologize and we went our separate ways. I'm 30 now and haven't heard from him in a long time now. Former friend's mom was a whole other can of vodka-soaked gummy worms, though. This woman was clearly narcissistic, and former friend cried to me about her many times. She showed up at his apartment constantly, and she showed up always trying to volunteer him to do things. He told me that before he moved out, she would regularly tell friends and relatives that he would come over and do chores for them, and then force him to do it, either for free or his mom would keep the money if he was paid anything. Eventually, former friend's grandparents had to open up a checking account for him to deposit any money he earned into it, so he'd have something to use when he became an adult. Former friend's mom lost her mind and demanded access to the account. She claimed before that she'd only been holding on to former friend's money for him till he was of age, but they knew she spent it because she never willingly returned a cent. Former friend's grandparents made her pay back $200 even though it was likely more than that, and she acted like they were robbing her, even though she'd basically been robbing former friend for years. Fast forward to when former friend and I are best friends. I watched him get in several confrontations with his mother, and after a while, he came up with something I thought was genius. He got a generic spray bottle, filled it with water, and kept it in reach by the front door. When his mother would start yelling at him when he talked to her while she stood outside, he'd squirt her in the face and tell her "no" like a dog when she got belligerent. Former friend, thanks to the help from his grandparents, managed to afford a car. It was just an old minivan, but he treated it like his baby. Former friend's mom flipped her lid because she felt it unsafe for a former friend to have a car. She never helped him get his license, his grandparents had to do that. Former friend's mom never really had a good reason as to why she didn't want him to drive, but she nagged at him about it anyway. Former friend told me the real reason she was so angry was that former friend owning his own car meant that he could go far away and never come back if he wanted to, and she wanted to keep him under her thumb. Then former friend's mom went from nagging about how he shouldn't be driving to him needing to share the van with his eldest step-sibling. This kid was 16 or so and had a permit hot off the press. Not a license, a permit. Former friend understandably didn't trust this kid and told his mom no. His stepbrother would not be driving his car. His mom showed up again with the whole step-family in tow, and they gave former friend a big speech about how he needed to help family. He told them he'd call the police if they even touched his van. The next day, he found both sides of his van had been keyed. The pain already sucked, but this didn't help. Fortunately, the apartment complex had CCTV, and it showed former friend's stepdad doing the deed. He was given a choice to either repaint the van, or former friend would press charges. The man repainted the van himself. Wasn't great paint, but it was an improvement. The van went from patchy metallic green to white. The final thing that happened with former friend's mom before former friend and I stopped being friends was she attempted to force former friend to renounce any claim to his grandparents' will. Former friend's grandparents had become so fed up with their daughter's entitled narcissistic behavior that they said they changed their joint will to give everything to their grandson. Former friend was elated by this, but his mother, not so much. She had a meltdown about it, and former friend got threats from his stepdad. Former friend just told them that he'd take all the evidence of harassment to police if they didn't leave him alone. And they finally did. They'd stopped talking to former friend completely by the time we parted ways. So, that's it. The only Karen story that I have to tell. Too long didn't read former best friend's mom was a complete entitled nightmare who wanted control of every aspect of her son's life, and it cost her her inheritance. Yeah, that shit is just crazy. I'd be curious to know more as to why they actually split ways, because I feel like it might be a little bit one-sided, as it can be hard to tell in situations like this. But I wouldn't be surprised if it turned out that former friend had some long-standing mental issues that was caused by the torment of his mother, and, you know, as it was said, when the friend suggested that former friend go get himself checked out, it went badly. I honestly really hope that former friend can get the counseling and therapy that they honestly deserve, because this kind of treatment can cause long-term damage and problems. I mean, hell, it almost sounds like that she actually values her stepchildren more than she values her own child, which is crazy. All I can really say is thank God he has people like his grandparents in his life that are there to stick up for him and pretty much put the entitled mother in her place. Extra cheesy broccoli. Karen tries to stop a homeless man's cookout. Now, I am frustrated. I am homeless and don't have many options food-wise. Disclaimer, I don't drink or do drugs, just a guy caught in a bad situation. Like the rest of the world, I have the same options, eat out or cook for myself. Restaurants are way out of my price range. The cheapest thing on the menu at a fast food place is enough to feed myself for an entire day from a cheap grocery store. My options to prepare my food are limited. I don't cook back at my camp, it's too dangerous and attracts too much attention. So I use the fire pits located in many of my city's parks. FYI, they are legitimate fire pits meant for picnics and for the public to use. Today, it was going to rain very early, so I went to the pit I use regularly to cook my breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I only eat once a day, early. I got to the pit around 3:30. I wrapped my foil pouch, made of potatoes, carrots, and a lunch meat foil bake. I had the fire going and my food in when this male Karen aggressively walked towards me and the pit with a cell phone to his ear. He came up screaming, "WTF are you doing? WTF are you doing? That's a fucking fire! WTF are you doing?" And I said, "I'm cooking dinner." The guy yelled at me to put the fire out, saying that it's against the law. Now, this isn't the first time I've had to deal with a very similar situation. I told him to eat a dick and beat it, and to his credit, he left. Until the fire department showed up. They came to put out my fire. I talked with them, and they said the police were on the way as well, and that I could be fined $500 for having a fire in a non-designated place. I said, "Isn't this one of the places? Look at the fire pit." Well, they said to wait until the police came. The cops asked me what's cooking. They said, "Yeah, this is the spot to have a fire," and pointed at the sign saying picnic area number 3. And I'll give credit where credit is due. They were damn good cops. They left without even asking my name. P.S. My meal came out fantastic. And for those of you who are wondering why the firefighters didn't just simply shrug and walk away, it's because in situations like this with illegal activity, they have to wait for law enforcement. Firefighters are not law enforcement, they are first responders. It's kind of how that whole ordeal works, and the cops are the ones who dish out the fines. Thankfully for this guy, the cops were chill as hell. Also, inadvertently, he did actually give some pretty good advice when it comes to just general finances and management. Getting yourself familiar with a good struggle meal that you can buy from like a cheap grocery store is definitely good practice to be in. And hell, I've recently had to learn this. The price of a Big Mac, like $8 nowadays, you can easily get yourself enough food for like 2 days. Full meals. Hamburger Helper, cheap as hell, can feed you for like 4 dinners. Not even joking. And it's like maybe $4 per dish that you cook. That's $1 per meal. Seriously. Getting yourself familiar with like the cheap stuff at the grocery store is really good practice, especially just because it's a good way to save money. And fast food, isn't cheap anymore. They've been gouging the shit out of those prices. Hopefully this dude can find himself out of this situation because I really do feel it. For those of you who are familiar with my past, I had a scare like this recently, and it can be a scary thing. And good on this guy for persevering through and finding his way through the situation. Hey, welcome to the outro. Don't forget this whole thing is basically brought to you by GamerSupps. If you like caffeine, then I can't recommend GamerSupps enough. Use code OZ at checkout to support the channel. And I do actually use this product. It's replaced all other sources of caffeine for me because I feel good. It doesn't have any of that extra stuff that a pre-workout blend might have. It's with a couple of the extra things to make it so you don't crash as hard. It's good. I like it. Personally, if you really want a good flavor, try the Soda Pressing Pear or even the Dragon Fruit Punch. Those two are my personal favorites right now.